Anyway,
Mm.
let's talk about all the wonderful ways that the intensity equation can also apply to bagpiping, because I think people are tired of hearing about your workout at this point. I know
I'm
I
tired of
am.
hearing about it. I
Yeah.
wish I could get
You're
this
going to be
mug to
hearing
my
about it.
lips to get a
You're
drink.
going to be hearing about it for several more days though, Jim.
Yeah, that's right. From both sides here
Yeah,
in
from both
stereo.
shoulders. That's right.
Yeah.
Hey Jim, how you doing this morning, buddy?
Well, Andrew,
Have you been doing stuff you shouldn't have been doing?
yeah, I mean, that's a given. That's like all the time. Yes, always. But this time, in this case, physical activity is what I've done. And apparently, it was a bad idea for
Yeah. Little overhead press. Like, what did you do yesterday? What was the
that was it.
what were we
At
looking
least
at? What was
that's
the
my guess is
tell me how you laid it out. Like, how was it structured? Because it sounds to me, with the limited information I have, that you did a little strength training yesterday, like purposefully.
yeah, I tried to do a little bit. I have a desk job, a mostly desk job, and so laying out a few weights here and there in the room. The intention being, oh, when one stands up from the desk and goes to get a drink of water or something, one might do a round of lifting or some squats or something to keep the blood
Interesting.
moving. Oh, I'll tell you what though. Can I?
It's a bar. It was a barbell. It's a barbell or dumbbells.
What's the difference? Oh yeah, barbell. That's it.
It's a long bar that
Oh
you put weight on the ends of.
yeah, it's a long bar with weight on the ends. Probably around 95 or 100 pounds right now, and
Okay,
I
and
can't.
then
I
so
can't do
what
it.
did you? Yeah, don't demonstrate. So what? So and then what did you do? Like my next question is like, what did you do? What did you do? Like 5 sets of five or something, or what did we do?
Yeah, 5 by 5 is the goal. Didn't get to the fifth though. I'll tell you. I think I have
Why?
a
What happened?
suspicion. I started to have so much pain. Well, and here's the thing: is that weeks ago, I took some trees out of my backyard, but I didn't want the
Mhm.
trees to fall into the neighbor's backyard. And so I did this method where I'd cut most of the way through a large branch or trunk, tie a rope, walk into my backyard, pull the tree toward me, and eventually it would, crack and come toward me. Operation was a success, but there was some pretty intense pulling over the course of a couple days, and immediately after that, I had a lot of pain in this shoulder. So I think yesterday when I tried to do overhead press and lift weights over my head, I think I was using this shoulder a lot more than this one because this one hurt a lot. Now this one
Yeah,
hurts a lot, Andrew. Everything hurts.
I know it does tend to happen, doesn't it? It happened to me. It
I
happened to me
guess
the
I
other
didn't
day.
used to be old, so it didn't used to
I know
happen.
it happened to me the other day. We had like high volume of squats throwing the ball against the wall. So
Mm.
we did that, and I hadn't done that in a while, and sort of badly crippled myself for several days. So yeah. So anyway, I mean, this is really kind of interesting, Jim. So and I mean, how long ago, previous to yesterday, have you trained that range of motion there, buddy? It's been a while.
I
You can't
mean,
remember?
I don't know if I've ever trained any range of motion. I've been a sporadic, all of a sudden do something for 2 days and then don't do it again for a very long time kind of person for a long time.
For
My whole
sure.
life, maybe.
Definitely. And then youth can cover up just how sort of like dangerous it can be to do that. But that, if you're overhead pressing, you're bringing your shoulders through a big range of motion. And my only point there is 95 is pretty aggressive if you haven't done it in a while. So that's how you ended up giving yourself the pains.
I don't even know what warm ups are, honestly. It's always been like, I don't have time for that.
Yeah. Yep. But I mean, I think that anyway, we're good. We're going somewhere bagpiping ish with this, actually, believe it or not. But I think that just working that range of motion a little bit, unweighted or with very minimal load, would be a good warm up for that, right? Which
Well,
maybe
now
you
this
did.
morning,
Did you do a
like
little
even
bit
just
of it?
getting it, yeah, like I think right now getting a t-shirt on is a lot of
Yeah.
work.
Yep. You're gonna have a hard time. But yesterday, did you do any like unloaded presses for a warm up? You just went straight to the heavy
Yeah.
weights?
Yeah, I've never had to think about this before.
Mm.
It's always been like, well, a warm up, that's another what, 10 minutes? I don't have 10 more minutes. I just gotta, if I'm gonna do the thing, I just gotta do it and keep going. So Now I feel
Yep,
like a fool,
classic.
but yeah, I don't think I've ever done like a warm up of any kind in my life. I live too fast.
Yeah, you're live fast and lose. Well, there you go, Jim. So this is, I mean, for me, it's a classic application of the somewhat seemingly universal principle that I call the intensity equation. Jim, do you
Tell
remember
me
what
about
that
the
is?
intensity equation. No,
Well, we've talked about it
is,
before.
is it like, is it something like, I feel like I can remember you saying something like maximum bearable intensity over minimally viable repetitions. Am I using the right words, but in the wrong order? Or
It's how I work to answer the question, how hard should I go here? Right?
mm,
And the answer is I should go as hard as I can without sacrificing form, right? That's the intensity question equation where it's I want to go as hard as I can without sacrificing form. So when it comes to like lifting weights, right? I want to go as heavy as I can on like a strict press, let's say. But if it's going to cripple me for 4 days, that would be an example of sort of sacrificing form, is what I call it. But, effing everything up is something we don't want to do. So, what you probably did yesterday is you went too hard and then you're not, well, you said you felt pain before you were even done working out.
yes, yeah. And I
Yeah.
think it might be like caused by having, I mean, in essence, yes, effed everything up. That is what I've done. And I think
Yes.
I effed everything up when I pulled down the trees a while ago
Yes.
and had not been uneffed yet. And so I've
Yes.
further effed everything.
Exactly. Well, yard work can be a little bit tricky, like a lot of people get injured doing yard work just because, yeah, I mean, you're moving a lot of load and weird sort of unfamiliar patterns and stuff. Yeah, a lot of people get injured. And you probably went too hard then too. But anyway, so as soon as like you feel pain when you're working out, that's usually a good signal that you've chosen an intensity that's too high. Okay. So
It's,
anyway,
it's funny because I thought to myself, like, maybe if I just keep going, it'll go away.
yeah,
Now
well, I
I
mean,
feel
there's
very,
something to
very
be
foolish. But
Well, there's something to be said for that. I mean, sometimes if something's just a little bit sore or tweaky, I mean, yeah, it can be the right decision to push through it. But if it's painful, it's usually a pretty bad sign, right? Anyway,
mm,
let's talk about all the wonderful ways that the intensity equation can also apply to bagpiping, because I think people are tired of hearing about your workout at this point. I know
I'm
I
tired of
am.
hearing about it. I
Yeah.
wish I could get
You're
this
going to
mug
be
to
hearing
my
about it.
lips to get a
You're
drink.
going to be hearing about it for several more days though, Jim.
Yeah, that's right. From both sides here
Yeah,
in
from both
stereo.
shoulders. That's right.
Yeah.
And if your wife's anything like mine, she's going to rib you for
I,
3
I
days
haven't
too,
told her
because
yet.
you won't be able to move. Oh,
I'm trying to keep
yeah.
it secret, but she's going to notice me drinking like this
Yes. Or unable to give her a hug.
and
You know?
asking her to help me change out of my t-shirt at the end of the day.
Yeah. It's like, honey, can you help me with
Or
something real quick?
why have you been wearing that same shirt for 4 days?
So the intensity equation, I mean, for working out, it's kind of obvious. But interestingly, I mean, it applies to so many things
Hmm.
for sure, but then definitely piping. Let me give you a quick example just to get the juices flowing.
Mhm.
What strength reed should I play?
Oh, so
Chain
maybe
reed
that
should I
would,
play?
yeah. I got your
Yeah, like
juices
that's,
starting to flow. I'm seeing. Yeah.
yep, that's an easy one, right? So there are benefits to playing reeds that are slightly harder. So if you have a choice between a super easy reed and a slightly harder reed, generally speaking, the slightly harder reed does have its advantages. Let's say maybe it's a little bit louder, maybe it crackles a
Mm.
little bit better. Maybe it's, and almost definitely, usually, as a general rule, it's more stable if the reed's a little bit harder. I'm trying to think. Oh, yeah, and then more volume as well. So, especially if you're in a
Mm.
pipe band, a little more volume, that sounds like a good thing, right? So, generally speaking, there's lots of upsides to playing a hard reed. Okay. However, what if by switching to the slightly harder reed, now we're working so hard that we can't focus on playing good finger work anymore because we're toiling so much with the strength of our reed? So now, what's the benefit of louder reed, more stability, all that stuff if you're going to make 10 mistakes during the set because you're struggling to keep your pipes going?
That
Right?
sounds like a familiar experience. I've definitely
Yeah. And so
been in
we've
that situation.
sacrificed, so in going for that hardness of reed, we've sacrificed form. Like form is just a word that we're using to describe things not going well. Okay. So,
Mm.
so we've sacrificed form there. So was going to that harder reed the right decision? Answer. No, it wasn't, Jim.
No, not in that
It was
case.
a bad decision. Right. And we've sort of seen this taken to extremes in the piping world. I'm sure most of us know that guy that accidentally got himself a hernia playing the pipes, right? Like
Yeah.
that's unfortunately, that's a pretty serious sacrifice of form that you can get from blowing reeds that are too hard and stuff like that. So, there's one example of
Yeah.
the intensity equation. Can I give you another one?
Please do. Yeah.
Let's say, let's not worry about the strength of the reed so much now, but what pressure should I blow my chanter reed? Where is the fabled,
Sweet
mythical
spot.
sweet spot?
Yeah.
Where is it? Well, it just so happens to be the hardest pressure I can blow on my pipe chanter reed. But wait, there's more. Without
Yeah.
sacrificing form. That's right.
Yeah.
So
See,
we want to
okay.
blow as hard as we can on our, just like you want to strict press as much as you can, but we can only go so far as we're not sacrificing form. So Jim sacrificed form yesterday. He went to the point of extreme pain and was unable to finish his set. But when you play your pipe chanter reed, we want to blow the sweetest possible tone we can blow out of it. So we want to blow the most energy, the most air through the reed that we can without sacrificing form. And what are some of those things that might start to happen? We might get squeaks and squawks. We might get those weird gurgly sounds, or the chanter might just start to sound kind of crappy once you exceed a certain pressure. Okay. And then, so once things start to sound crappy, or once things start to squeak and squawk, that's how you know you're doing a little too much through the reed, right? The intensity equation kind of works. Sorry, did you have something to add there, Jim?
I was going to say that makes sense.
Ah, very nice. I feel like you're riding the struggle bus today. You're in a lot of pain, and that's, I'm helping you through this one.
I appreciate it.
The intensity equation kind of works in the opposite way or something when it comes to drone reed calibration, but it's all the very same. Like, how do you calibrate your drone reeds? Well, we want our drone reeds to take not the maximum, but we want it to take the absolute minimum amount of air without sacrificing form, though, because if you close the reed down too much, then what form do we end up sacrificing with the drone reed calibration?
I guess the form of sound coming from your drones.
Exactly, right? So the drones are going to turn off. If a teeny tiny little surge in blowing causes the drone reeds to shut off, then we've gone too much. So this intensity equation really helps us with a lot of piping things. Can I give you another one?
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
no, go ahead, Jim. Tell me what's interesting.
Just that in both cases with the chanter reed and with the drone reeds, that it's like the idea seems to be find the point that is a little bit too far and dial it back just a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a little trial and error there. Yeah, you're not going to know unless you go there a little bit. It's the same with lifting weights, right? Like, what are we actually doing? We're probably actually going a little bit beyond. We're purposely sacrificing a little bit of form, and that little bit of soreness and whatever, that's sort of like how you're going to make your gains and get better over time. Yeah. So yeah, there's definitely some trial and error. And I don't know anybody that can blow perfectly steady at the sweet spot. So sometimes you're going to accidentally go a little over, but that's usually not catastrophic if you go a little bit over. It's usually a good thing. Let me ask you another question. For how long should I play my pipes? This is a great application.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's something I was kind of starting to imagine those. Like, I've been in situations where like my playing is deteriorating, but I really want to get this phrase down. So I'm going to play it 100 more times. And I end up basically just playing it 100 times crappy because I've just been going for too long.
Just throwing it out there. What happens if you play something 100 times crappy?
I learn it real crappy.
Not only are you not getting better, but what are you also doing? You're also ingraining the habit of playing it crappy, right? So we don't want to do that, do we? So that would probably be an example of sacrificing form. I'm also thinking about just, general wetness, for a lack of a better term, right? So
it's a
lot of people out there
to think about.
Yeah, exactly. It's what you thought you were tuning into today when you turn on the podcast.
Right, yeah.
It's like, man, I hope they talk about general wetness today on the pod. So, but a lot of people are wet blowers, right? Or do they just play too long each day and their pipes never get a chance to kind of like air out and re-equalize? And so you're always starting with an already generally wet bagpipe, right?
Yeah.
And then of course you're going to be a wet blower, right? But I mean, that debate aside, right? If you play too long, your pipes are going to get soaked and it's going to negatively impact how your pipes can operate tomorrow, right? So that would be sacrificing form. So we can't play that long. Okay. And then, by the way, the opposite would also be true. We also can't play so short that our pipes never get enough moisture in them. That wouldn't be right either. So we want to play the maximum amount of time. Okay. Let's say this is a thought experiment. Maybe it's not true every single day, but we want to play the maximum amount of time, but without sacrificing form. So after about 45 minutes, if I play any longer, it's going to have a negative effect on what happens tomorrow. This is a big one. If you play in a top grade 1 band, like this is a big one. You got to play your pipes enough, but not too much. And you have to find that sweet spot. And really, I don't think people are using the equation, but they're exercising that same concept of you got to pick the right intensity and you got to do it right. Jim, you ever played in a band that warmed up for 2 hours on the day of the games?
Yeah, I mean,
I have.
I guess now I'm thinking, have I actually played in that band, or can I just really clearly imagine that being the situation? Or have I been the piper who warmed up for 2 hours on the day of the games, even if the rest of the band wasn't? I think that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. How long do you want to warm up before your contest? Well, let's say maybe you want to warm up a good amount of time, but it can't be so much that the quality of your performance is going to suffer as a result, which, by the way, anything beyond 15, 20 minutes, and it sounds to me like you're going to be leaving your best effort in the warm up and not on the actual performance.
I've done that for
that's
gigs
a generalized
too.
statement, but
yeah, unfortunately, it's like a symptom of nerves maybe when like the gig or the competition feels like a big deal. I'm like, oh, well, I better really get dialed in, and I end up in the green room for an hour, and then the pipes sit unplayed while they're waiting for me to do the gig, and then they sound horrible because I had them dialed in soaking wet and warm, and now they're cold and dry,
Exactly. Next question. How much should you practice?
As in like in a session or like
generally in your life? How much, how much time should you allocate to practicing in your life? And again, the answer is I'd like to practice as much as reasonably possible, but there's that word reasonably in there. What does that mean? We'd like to practice a lot, but if your wife takes all the stuff and the kids and leaves because all you ever do is play bagpipes, that's too much, right?
Yeah, that's a sign that you've gone too far.
Yep. Or if every day you practice to the point where you're so frustrated that you want to stab your eyeballs out, that's another example of too much.
Yeah.
Right. Myself, I definitely struggle with that. Like if I am striving for perfection for too long, eventually I start to get frustrated. But that's detrimental to that's detrimental to my like overall enjoyment of this, which, just checking in with everybody, that's probably hopefully why we're doing this is for some sort of enjoyment or fulfillment, right? We can't spend 4 hours a day thinking about bagpipes and practicing because then other elements of our life are going to fall out of order. Okay. And then sure, you're a good piper, but your wife left and your dog left and your house burned down and
your bagpipes are the
culprit
for the rest of your other aspects of your life falling apart. And so you're kind of left with this situation where this thing that you loved and that's why you were doing it. I mean, you're kind of bound to dislike it because it's ruining your life.
Yeah. Or I think for some people, it's maybe kind of like an addiction or an escape. Like if you're addicted to something, you're way too intense about whatever that thing is, causing a huge sacrifice of form in other areas of your life. I mean, that's it, right? That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
It sounds extreme, but I could name more than this many people. That's, by the way, for listeners, I just held up all my fingers. I can name more than that many people who are bagpipe addicted and they've let their obsession throw the rest of their lives into complete disarray, which is very sad. You don't want to see that. Jim, I think that might be you.
Yeah, that might be me.
You love bagpipes so much that you don't strict press often enough anymore.
Yeah, that's right. Bagpipes are the only thing I do these days.
Struggling, riding the struggle bus.
I am.
You could go to a masseuse or one of those sports massagers or a chiropractor or something.
Well, and
One of those deep
it's
tissue
very
guys.
funny. Like that's one of the first things that I thought this morning as I rolled out of bed and went, "Oh no, the other one. That's my bag squeezing arm. No."
Yeah.
Because before my right shoulder was hurting after felling the trees, and I often would comfort myself when it hurt a bit and just think like, well, at least it's not my left shoulder, at least it's not my squeezing arm. But now
Yes.
my squeezing arm has gone, and so speaking of being bagpipe obsessed, I didn't think to myself like, will I be able to maintain my livelihood, and keep
Yeah.
bringing
Will I
money
be able
home
to
for the
care for
family?
my family? Yeah, it's exactly.
Nope.
Uh,
I thought
it's just
my
like, ooh, that's my
bagpipes.
squeezing arm. That's a squeezing arm
Yeah.
there. Which, by the way, for me, it overlaps at least. So I'm able to disguise my
Ah,
bagpipe
yes.
obsession by,
Mm,
making it how I provide as well. Hey, I got a
yeah.
question for you.
Yes,
I
sir.
got a question for you. How fast are you going to play that jig, that new jig that you learned? How fast are you going to
Oh,
play it?
I just did this last night. I
What
played a
what
slip
tempo
jig
are you going
so
to pick?
fast it sounded terrible. As fast as you
Uh-huh.
can without sacrificing form.
Yeah. So what tempo is that? Well, it's going to involve some trial and error, maybe. But yeah, if you set the tempo and all of a sudden everything goes to crap and it sounds terrible and not musical, what does that mean? It means you're beyond the limit.
Yeah, you sacrificed form.
Yeah, by the way, don't misunderstand me here. If you're so conservative and you never push the intensity, are you going to get any better? So we have to find that line, and that is where we should be operating. We should be playing the reed that's on the line, not a reed that's way easy enough for me. We
Hmm.
should be, if we're interested in improving, we should be right on the line in all of these matters. We should be playing the reed that's right, maybe just 0.5% over the line. So we're developing that strength and getting the best possible sound. We should be trying the tempo that's right on the edge. Okay. And we should be working to fix the issues in our playing right there. Okay. And
Hmm.
and that's where we should be training, border of right on the border of sacrificing form. That's our training zone for all these things.
And I feel like it's maybe worth bringing up what you've mentioned before that, like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think that on the line and pushing it a bit, that would be part of the practice part of our practice
Mm-hmm.
session.
Yes.
Not that we need to be operating there 100% of the time. We can kind of do that when we're
Yeah.
focusing on our work and then still have our dessert afterward and have fun playing.
Right. How much uncomfortable, strenuous, hyper focused practice should we do, Jim?
A, a little bit,
No,
as much as we can without
we should do it.
sacrificing form.
And what would form be in this case? Like form would be what you can psychologically tolerate. It would be like,
Yeah.
okay, I do bagpipes for fun. And for the last 15 minutes, I've been strenuously practicing playing at a tempo I'd prefer not to play at much longer and really digging in. And my brain hurts and my fingers hurt. Oh, your fingers hurt? Oh, that's too bad because you just pulled landscaping duty. Nothing like that, right? So once we get to that point, that's when it's time for dessert, right?
Yeah. Remind yourself why
So
you love it.
yeah. So we're going to practice 10 to 15 minutes, or we're going to practice as much as we can tolerate in the high focus, mentally straining zone. And then do play for enjoyment and just horse around and kind of have fun.
That seems important too because the play for enjoyment part, the dessert part, that's maybe where we'll get to see the fruits of the hard work part as well. Like the
Sure.
fun parts should be getting even more fun, and that can help to kind of keep going.
Yep. It can also point to what we actually really need to focus on
Hmm.
next time we practice. It's like, man, this would be a lot more fun if fill in the blank, right?
Hmm.
So when we do have these moments where like Jim played the slip jig and it was way too fast and sounded crappy, and it's like, okay, well, you know what? It would be a lot more fun if you could play at that tempo, right? And then what's
But have it
holding
still
you
sound
back?
like a slip jig and not just
Yeah,
a
and then
unholy pile of notes.
and so what specifically in that unholy pile of notes is the problem? And then that points towards what you're going to want to practice the next day.
Hmm.
Easy, right?
Yeah, it seems like a good set of formulas and equations there. Kind of helped me to discover what to work on again here. It's like maximizing the goodness, right? It's maximizing the fun and
Mhm.
joy here as well. I'm
Sure.
into that.
I'm reminded of, was it Jack from The Shining? I mean, he didn't allow enough time for fun in his life.
That was Jack. Yes, he was a dull boy. Hmm.
Right. And so, he needed this episode. He needed to understand the intensity equation. He let things kind of fall out of alignment.
Let's hope that there's some kind of alternative timeline where somehow he did hear this episode on the drive up to the hotel and it changed his life, and that whole thing plays out very differently. Lovely vacation for that family. They go home afterward and talk about how much fun they had.
Love it. Yeah, I mean, they deserve to be a happy family. I mean, they're just all so delightful. I had one final thought, but I lost it when I tried to make a joke about The Shining.
Is there a lesson there about did we take the intensity of our Jack Nicholson jokes just a little too far, and that
No, I think that's having fun. I think we're balancing
was
it.
that actually just right?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. I think that's it. I think we got one. Jim, you made it. You made it to the end of another one, despite your extreme levels of pain. Brought on by unfortunate overlooking of the intensity equation.
Hey everybody, Andrew Douglas here from the Piper's Dojo, and I just want to say thanks so much for listening to today's iteration of the podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard here today, it would be super helpful to us and to a lot of bagpipers out there trying to find us. If you could give us a top-notch review on whatever platform you're using to listen to this podcast, particularly Apple, iTunes, and Spotify and things like that, your review would be really, really helpful. So if you have a moment today, definitely go over there and help us out. Other than that, until we meet again on the podcast or somewhere else, thanks again for listening.